Hello everybody, and you're very welcome to this little tutorial on sowing these wonderful seeds that GIY have sent to lots and lots of you out there. And I hope they're not all going to end up in a drawer and not being planted. So sow these seeds, it'll be great fun for everybody and also lovely to give as gifts to friends and family, because you probably won't need them all, little plants. That's hopefully when they grow. So it would be lovely just to see them growing and to be able to pass on some nice plants to people and let them try their hand at growing. And if you've never done this before, it's not very daunting, and don't be put off. You don't have to have all high-tech everything, so have fun with it, and it's not the end of the world if the first lot don't grow. You can try again. So in this lovely selection of seeds that came through the libraries to everybody, we have peas, which are lovely, and lovely with a little bit of mint and new potatoes. Who wouldn't like peas? You have carrots, Autumn King, which is an autumn later one, but usually they don't get a chance to grow that long because people thin out the little baby ones and they're really gorgeous and sweet. And we have beetroots, which are very, very good for you, as are carrots, and they can be either let grow as a full beetroot, or else you can use the foliage, because you get leaves of beetroot in your mixed leaves. And also we have Oriental Greens, which are really nice and spicy, some lovely mixed leaves. And we have tomato sun gold, which I'm going to sow for you today. But before I do that, I want to show you some of the gizmos and gadgets that you need to do the job. So first of all, you need a container to sow your seeds in. Now, a container is anything that will hold the compost that the roots of the little seeds can grow into. So you need something like either this is a 2 litre Tetra Pak, and these are coffee cups, a little reused flower pot, toilet roll holders, which are super for growing peas, or you can use these little multi-packs that plants come in that I'm sure people have stashed everywhere unless they've recycled them all. You can use a proprietary seed tray, but you probably don't need this size for just your own use at home, so don't panic, you don't need to have a big seed tray. So that's their basic ones. Then you have also a big flower pot which you can grow carrots in, or one of these tough trugs, I think they call them, but you need to put drainage holes in it if you're going to grow carrots in it. So they're suitable. You can also use, oh, this is heavy, a window box, a big window box to grow seeds in. And we will talk then about the compost that goes into these also. And you can use either, any of these little trays are very good for putting water in to let your compost soak up, so that you don't have to ruin your windowsill or your area where you're putting your seeds to germinate. And that's usually the trickiest bit in all of this, is germinating them and having enough heat and enough light that you don't get big long gangly seeds. But as the seeds I sowed here now, as they grow, I will do a further little video on what you do next. That's provided mine grow, of course. Now, when you're growing your seeds, you also need compost to grow them in. And when I was learning back in the day horticulture, we didn't have such a thing as proprietary compost. I'll tell you how old I am. We always made our own with garden soil and leaf mould, or our own compost that we would have from stuff that had been left to compost in the corner of the garden. There wasn't compost bins or anything like that. And that's the way I learned, and having to mix it and sieve it and adding in some sand, not builder sand, not ideal to put through compost. But nowadays we're spoiled for choice and we have all varieties of compost available to us. So you can get, this is a John Innes compost, and it has added nutrients, so it gives the baby seedlings, when they germinate, food to grow for a number of weeks until they need proprietary feeding then to keep them going a bit longer. And you can buy proprietary tomato food to grow any of those, or you can make your own if you have go out for a walk and with big rubber gloves on you and a bag, and you can pick some nettles and you can make your own fertilizer to water your plants, which is very good, but it stinks to high heaven, so just be careful about the smell of it if you're put off with the smell. It takes a little while, but it works. Also, I have here, this is a Pea Free Compost, which is made from fibres of other plants, and it's got added nutrients in it also. So whatever you wish, but just be careful when you're buying compost. Don't buy just peat. Peat moss on its own has no feed value in it whatsoever, and it won't be any good for sowing your seeds in. It'll be okay to top dress your beds in your garden, but don't use it for sowing seeds. So now I have already put compost into this milk carton, and because there's a little space here, I'm able to water it with my little watering can. So that's a handy way if you're kind of afraid you'll drive the seeds all over the place when you have them sown. And I always water my compost before I sow the seeds because they have a better adherence to the compost. Now you don't have to do that, but if you're not doing it that way, what you need to do is have a container with water in it, and then you just sit your little tray, when you have it filled with compost, down into the container, and the water comes up from underneath, and then you're not damaging your seeds on the top. And I prefer to water seeds that way all the time, and for that reason then I have this, it's for a grow bag for tomatoes, and it's a great way of having to water your seeds because you can leave them all in it on a window or a table near a window and put your seed trays on it in good light when you have all your seeds sown, and hopefully they will germinate there on that. Now I've also filled the little flower pot with compost, Tetra Packs, and the toilet roll holders with compost. Now a little bit went down around the sides, but I'm not really worried about that because when the seeds go into these, now these are ideal for sowing peas in. And you can sow in a little pot like this, you could sow maybe 1, 2, so maybe 3 little tomatoes, and then when they germinate you could give that to a friend and they can then prick out the little seedlings and have 3 tomato plants, and you can give them to, they can give them to other friends. So it's all just a little bit of trial and error and fun doing this and just watching them germinate. They won't all germinate at the same time, so don't panic at all. And just the weather has been so cold, it hasn't been ideal really for sowing anything outside, so everything has to be inside. And if you're lucky enough to have a garden, you can prepare a bit of soil outside by digging the sod and turning it upside down and adding in compost then on the top, and maybe putting little boards around it or something for a little area to grow your veggies outside. But if you're not lucky enough to have that, containers are the way to go then to sow your seeds. And you can grow in a small space, you can grow quite an amount of stuff. We're not going to be feeding all the neighbourhood. Well, if you can, if you want to, that would be lovely. I'm sure everybody would be delighted to get some fresh lettuce and fresh carrots and lovely bits from your garden. So now I am going to show you how to sow the tomatoes. So when you get the packet, just give it a little flick like this to get all the compost, all the seeds, beg your pardon, down into the bottom of and there's quite a good few in here. So we mightn't need them all because I might do a couple of sowings of these in case the first lot fail, which is not unusual. This can happen. Now I hope you'll be all able to see, and make sure your hand is quite dry. And in my hand now here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. I have about 22 seeds there. And I don't think anybody really needs 22 tomato plants themselves, so that's why we want to pass them on to everybody else. Now I have already soaked this compost, So these are quite big seeds, so you're lucky in that you can pick one out and pop it in on top of the compost and watch where you're letting him drop. And I'm going to put the next one in about an inch farther on, and I'm going to put another one on another inch and another one. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Now that's those. That's that many gone in there, and I'm going to put these back in the packet. Oh no, before I do that, I have a few here. So I'm going to put 3 in this little pot. 1, 2, 3. And I'll put 1, 2, 3 in that little one. And I'll put 3 in this one. Where are you gone? In you go. 1. And don't worry, because you can't see whether they're up, which side of these are up or down. It's different with other seeds like pumpkins or cucumbers or marrows. You would sow them on their edge. And just put those away there for 1 second. So now we have tomatoes in these 4 containers. Now we need to cover them with more compost. And you can just give them a little tap down with your finger that they're onto the compost. Oh, without picking him up with your finger, with your wet finger. Now, if anybody's a bit heavy-handed with sowing seeds and putting too much compost on top of them, you can use this lovely stuff called Vermiculite, which is very, very light. And Vermiculite is a naturally occurring mineral, and it's so light. So I'm going to do an experiment. I'm going to cover these 3 with Vermiculite. I'm just going to put it in like that on top. The 2 of these. Now I'll show you how to do the others now in a second. You just pop that in there and just give them a little shake. And it's important then to write the name. So with on these you can write the name on the cup, because you will forget what's gone in. And that would be nice. If they grow, you could hand them on to somebody else. Okay, so I'm going to put those guys back here now out of the way for a second. And then I have my little pot with 3 in it here. And I'm just going to get a little bit of compost out of this bucket. And this is quite fibrous. I've never used Pea Free Compost before. So it's very fibrous and it's very light actually. So I'm just going to be very carefully, I hope you can see this, I'm just going to put a little bit of this on top of those, just very gingerly, not too much. Now don't fill your pot too full, because you won't be able to if you want to water it from the top. Now this is quite dry, but the compost in the pot has been wet, so that's okay. And then we'll put right on the little pot. That's why coloured pots are far better than black pots to sow seeds in, because you can write on them. So that's a good idea. So that's our little pot of tomatoes. And then we have our Tetra Pak ones. And again, I'll get some more of this and I'll just sprinkle a little bit on the top of these. Now when these are sown now in here, so I would have to keep those somewhere nice and warm. Now what I could do with this is put a little piece of cling film over the top of it and make a little mini greenhouse. But I want to be very careful that I watch if the seeds are germinating to take it off. Otherwise you get what's called damping off, and the seeds can just keel over and die. But because this is a bit deeper, I could put the cling film across it, and then I can water in the end. Now, if you're using an ordinary tray, this is called a rose for watering. And this is a very fine rose that goes onto the watering can. It's a flexible one. And instead of watering with the rose facing down, it's a better idea to put it that way on the watering can and water a very fine mist over your seeds, because otherwise they would be blown everywhere in the compost. So I'm going to put those back here out of the way. Now, if you want to, you can use a riddle to put this, or a sieve. This is called a riddle, and this one I have a good few years, and it's a bit dirty now, but it has different grades of mesh. So if you're doing a lot of seeds, this is a way to go. And you can put one of your little meshes in, and you can put the coir, and you can see when you put that down, it comes out very fine over your seeds. I love riddling compost to take stones out when I was learning to do all this kind of stuff back in the day. Okay, so that's that guy. So I weigh my vermiculite. So that's our some tomatoes, and I'm going to seal down the packet, and I will do some more another day then of the tomatoes. I was watching the time for this video, so next now I'm going to show you this. I'm going to grow in this big window box, which has been filled up. There's a good 2 inches, I suppose, down here on the side of that. Now that has been, it's fairly damp, it's been watered earlier, and I'm not sure how much is in these now, but I think I'm going to sow the beetroot in this, because beetroot you can use the little leaves, as I said, or you can use the let them grow, and beetroots are lovely and they're quite fast to mature. And because this is a bit lower, you might avoid a lot of the little gremlins that come and eat these things on you. Now you will have to keep an eye when you put them outside for snails and slugs and aphids, aphids or greenfly and all of those. But hopefully there'll be plenty of ladybirds and fellas around to eat all those for you. So the beetroot has quite a few in the packet as well, and they're quite big. So I hope you can see them there now. There's quite a few there and they're quite a size. So for that, normally I use in a seed tray, I would use a plasterer's trowel in a seed tray. But this is just a little block of timber, and I'm just compacting down the seed a little bit, or the compost a little bit, just to make sure that it's level, because I don't want the seed to go in under a big piece of compost and get lost and not be able to come up. And I think I'm going to sow these in a little row, just a few beetroot, and then I could sow more at another time in some other kind of container. But I'm just going to get the edge of my little piece of timber now, and I'm just going to make a little line just all along in this window box. And you see, you can eat the leaves of beetroot as well, but if you're growing the beetroot as a full vegetable, you'll have to either thin them or plant them at the distance to let them grow as little baby beets. So I think I'm going to plant these the distance that I could let them grow as individual little beetroots that you can take out and use as they are mature, because you don't want to let beetroot get too big, because it's very tough in the center, and they're so lovely in anything beetroot, super vegetable really. So, and they're quite big, so they are easy to sow. I hope now I'll be able to tilt this so that you can see what I'm doing. I don't know how many is here now, but That's provided these all germinate now, but hopefully they will. Oh, last one. They're a little brown, little kind of light brown seeds, so they're very easy to see in front of the compost. I'm going to put the rest back into the packet now. So there's quite a few, and I lost one. You go in there. Sit up there now. So I'm not sure if you can see this now, but you might be able to see them all along there in a little line, the little beetroots. And I'm going to cover them then with a little bit of compost. This is the other compost. I'll just put it into the flower pot so I know. And I'm going to put a little, just going to stick the top of the there so I can see where they are. So I know where the line is. But now at this side of the window box, I think I'm going to sow the Oriental Greens, because these are cut and come. I think that you can, you know, cut them and they'll come back again as mixed leaves. And they're all different. Just clean my hand now. Then get the seeds down. Now, get them down to there's not that many of those now. So I'm just going to hold on to that there for a second. So I've just one sowing, I would think, of these to put along here. And they're all different types of seeds together. So you have to be very careful how you sprinkle these nice and evenly, and not all in a big clump. And that's why I firmed down my compost so that I'll be able to hopefully see them. So with your thumb and your forefinger, you just very gently sprinkle them and move along, and kind of keep an eye, close eye, where you're putting them in. These will be exciting when they come up, because the flavours of these are really nice, and it's, you know, so simple to grow them. And then you can put these outside in a box. You could sow a whole window box of these mixed leaves, which is lovely. I'm just sprinkling them gently all the way along, just to give them all time to have room to grow to their own potential. Now, if you wish, when these grow, you can also prick them out and grow on some of them as individual lettuce, depending on the variety they are. So they're in the other half of the box now. And hopefully when next week, or whenever they grow a little bit, and I do another video, we'll be able to see how they've done. I think that's them all there now. Just make sure that's that. Yeah. And then I'm going to get my compost, and I'm going to just shake a little bit over the top of these. Now with this now, I would need to have the watering can and the rose to water it from the top. But that's quite damp as is now, so it'll take them a little while to germinate. Now I'm putting a nice little covering over the beetroots. You could push them down gently into the line if you wish, just to make sure, and put where I have the little piece of the label there, but I will put a label there now just to see, so that I know who's growing where. But as I said, you can eat the leaves of the beetroot as well, so if you don't want to let them grow as full beetroots, you can use them as mixed leaves in your salad. It's all a personal choice really of what you do. Now with my little piece of timber, which I have dried off, I'm just going to tap all that down then, just to make sure that they're all in the contact with the compost. And again with this now, you could cover it with a piece of cling film. So now we need a label and a marker, and we'll put beetroot, there, and we'll put Oriental Greens, and the date, which I don't know the date. I don't know what date it is today. This is terrible. I put the Oriental Greens there, and it's a good idea to put the date so that you know how long they're going to take to germinate and how long, you know, for the next time when you sow the next lot, how long they're going to be. Now that's the beetroot, Oriental Greens and tomatoes in the compost. So they need to be put somewhere that's nice and bright, but not too direct sunlight, and then let them germinate, and then hopefully I will see you again and we will take it to the next stage, and I'm going to show you then in the next video how to sow the carrots and the peas. So thank you all very much for looking at this, and I hope you've picked up a few little tips along the way, and happy growing, and I will see you soon again with the rest of the seeds. Thank you all very much. Bye.